Hello, folks. Just a couple of seconds. We're on our way to another Orange and Blue Blood Thursday. I am Buddy Martin, the maestro here tonight. Glad to be with you. What a great show last night. Gonna have a good one tonight. So stay tuned with us right here coming up in this hour on Orange and Blue Blood Thursday. Got a lot going on. Check us out. Stand by. The Buddy Martin Show is coming up next right here on this channel. Tell your friends and neighbors to get with it.
It's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
Ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening, folks. Glad to be with you tonight. It's going to be a really good show. What a great show last night, too. We'll have a little clip from that. I want to start out by saying thank you to all you people who sent me wonderful messages, cards. I appreciate the sympathy cards very much. We're going to have Rob Browne back in just a minute to play a soundbite from his press conference. Actually, he talked to Billy Napier. I told him, hey, something I didn't do yet. So we'll talk with him. And, of course, it's Thursday night. That means somewhere out there lurking is Ben Troupe. I hope he's got the link. We'll find out if he doesn't. Always pleasure to get back on the air with Franz Beard. He's under the weather. And Loren Meadows has been out for a while. So we're getting the band back together tonight, folks, and really glad of that. So this is a family show. So we always like to be able to do family things and talk about friends and things. I'm going to first adjust my Wi-Fi. Stand by. Hope I don't lose you. Okay, coming right back. Let's do that. And let's do this. That might help to improve the picture just a little bit. Okay, so we'll stand by with that. I wanted to say tonight a couple of things. Great to hear that my friend Kaki Mulkey is out of the hospital and doing better. Wonderful news, Kaki. And get ready soon and get that meal cooked with you. Carswell are coming down there. To my friend Tom Ingram, he's been in rehab. Great to hear you and Jennifer are doing so well, my friend. And it's a daily struggle. I know it's a long rehab, I'm proud of you, what you've done. And keep up, man. Keep up the good thing going on. And our message, a sad message tonight, RIP to a wife of a former partner of mine, Gordon Smith's wife, Carolyn. Gordon and I were in radio business together years ago. RIP to Carolyn, who passed away just recently. So we'd like to keep those things going. And also tell you folks, if you have messages or things, this is a family. Feel free to represent and go ahead and tell us about them. All right, just a minute. Rob Browne will be here. We think we're going to Ben Troupe. We're going to go ahead and play our commercial at the moment. I want to hear also the soundbite from Rob. So stand by. Let's hear from Meldon Law, and we'll come right back with the soundbite from Rob, and Rob will be joining us.
Jeffrey, what are you doing?
Well, I'm joining the band, of course. Since Meldon Law is the official law firm partner of the Florida Gators, I want to help.
Dad, we're litigators. Let's stick to helping people in the courtroom.
Well, can we still hang out and jam a little bit? At Meldon Law, we won't back down.
With Rob Browne, who's going to be standing by. I'm going to go ahead and hope Rob can hear me. Let's go see if we can get Rob. He's on his phone tonight, I think, traveling. What a great job he did for us this week up at Nashville. There he is right there. I see his eyebrows. Hello, Rob. Can you hear us? Hi, Rob. Rob?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay.
We're driving back from media days.
Yeah.
And, man, it was wild. We left this afternoon about 4:30. Still a good number of people in the room up there. I know Paul Feinbaum likes to have his last man standing, but it was a great week, and everybody's already talking about Dallas next year. And you know, the question, like you say, Is it going to be a Texas takeover? That'll be a challenge.
Yeah, I've written some things about that this week. I've never known Texans when they did want to take over. I lived in Colorado for quite a few years. They like to come skiing out there. We had a saying long about May or June. Oh, the slopes are safe. The Texans have gone home. That's how it is. Those folks, they party hardy. Well, we're getting you okay. But I want to say to you, first of all, what a great job you did. Some wonderful bites. I think probably the highlight might have been the one little clip that you sent me from Begonquin, which I know Allie fell in love with. And it was terrific comments about he wasn't playing for the money. He played for other things. So now listen, I'm going to go ahead and play this bite because you're going in and out of the sound. We play this bite. We'll come back. See if you can hear this. This is you talking to Billy Napier and your question. Good question, by the way.
Question back in the same section.
Rob Brown, Sideline Sports in Memphis. How much of what you learned coaching with Dabo Swinney at Clemson, Nick Saban at Alabama, that do you still use today, and how much of what you learned is obsolete in today's world?
Yeah, no, I think obviously two of the better coaches in the history of our game, if not the best. And I would say that a lot of the things that you learn from those guys stand the test of time. I think simple things like defining expectations, being really consistent and fair, everyone understanding their role, and kind of putting the ego aside and working to earn more. I think they're good at what they do because they have conviction about what they want their football team to look like, right? And there's a big picture plan relative to purpose, right? I know for me, our purpose is the player, right? We want to create a life-changing organization that has impact on the person, the student, and the football player. And I think we've learned those things. I'm excited about some of the things that we've implemented to do just that. If we can connect the dots with the degree, the experiences that we can create for our players through our alumni, if we can equip, if we can educate and to teach and develop football players, we've got a great opportunity to do those things in the future as well.
Coach Napier, thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.
I hope you saw that bite, and that was a pretty good response out of Billy, I thought. And what was your feeling about? I want to ask this question because today a couple of people chimed in on my column I wrote, saying, and I noticed today Feinbaum had a guest on who said he was tired. He was going to go home and listen to Billy Napier's interview and go to sleep. Get it? He thinks he's dull. We got that, okay? So, of course, there's people like that. And I wrote a column today, and if you folks are members of Gator Bait, I wish I could give it to you free, but they won't let me. It's about what's interesting is it was what was not said, that got all the news. And if you listen to the show last night with Allie and with David Moulton, it was about Steve Spurrier's alleged, I say alleged because he didn't really make it, and his tweet or Twitter that he had got put out right after the quote came out regarding Kirby Smart. For those who don't know, Kirby Smart, and I got the bite somewhere, I put it on Twitter, corrected a reporter who said something about the Florida-Georgia game. He said, let me get this straight. It's the Georgia-Florida game. Okay, we can argue that. Kirby, alphabetically, it's the Florida-Georgia game, all right? I don't know why it means necessarily we have to say Georgia-Florida, except you call it what you want to, and we'll call it what we want to. This was a reporter asking a question. I get it. It's gamesmanship. So somehow in all this, and I think Rob can hear me, and we'll turn his sound back up in just a second. In this whole thing, Steve Spurrier Facebook page, which by the way he didn't really know he had, posted a comment, which was kind of snarky, like, we won 11 out of 12. I'm paraphrasing, and so until you win 11 out of 12, it's going to be called the Florida-Georgia game. All right, so that was posted. It was a tremendous response and reaction. Actually, it was Tuesday night that I heard it because David Whitley told me about it, and I had not seen it. So that thing went like wildfire everywhere. People were going, attaboy, and, et cetera, et cetera. So this thing carried on for a while. I called Steve to get the exact quote. And Steve said, "What are you talking about?" Well, that's what started it. And a friend or associate got a little overzealous, decided to make up the quote and put it on Spurrier's page. And he was not happy about it because as much as you think he's a wise ass, as much as he pops off, he never, as Alex said, never bragged on his record publicly. I'll tell you, quite privately, he didn't mind telling you, but publicly. And so consequently, after that, he said, well, I got to call somebody and find out how that happened. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus because I think it was well meant and well intentioned. By the way, it was pretty darn good quote. And a lot of people thought, I wish he would have said that if he didn't. And I read a string of quotes today, and I put them in my column on Gatorbait about some of these comments, 130 comments. They're almost 100%, maybe 99% favorable. They loved it. And by the way, some of them were Georgia fans saying that, oh, I love that. Don't back down. Don't apologize. Someone must have hijacked your account. So it turned out to be quite an event. Rob, I'm going to try to turn you on now, see if we can hear you. You heard about that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I was there, sitting right there when Kirby Smart said that about the Georgia-Florida game. But, golly, there was a period where Florida won 18 of 21 in that series. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with that particularly. It's gamesmanship, And Kirby wants you to know he got bragging rights, and he does for right now. But you just don't try to change. I mean, look, you call it that if you want to, but don't correct other people when they say Florida, Georgia, because alphabetically it's Florida, Georgia. And there are many, many fans in Florida who call it Florida, Georgia. So I don't know. What did you think of that? Did you think I was pretty small of him or not?
Well, I mean, he was having fun. I was like 6 feet from him when he said it, and I think he was just kind of having fun with it. And he knows how big that game is. But look, that game is made Jacksonville. I hope that game stays in Jacksonville. I know other rivalries have become home and home, but that's one that is really one of the best rivalries in college football, and I hope it stays there. And Georgia's won a few.
Yeah, for those of you just tuned in, Rob's driving all the way back to Memphis and from SEC Media Days, and as we know, the signal is inconsistent. We're going to try a few more minutes here with Rob and say, Rob, if you can hear me, since you're not a Florida person, although you have a lot of people in Florida on your program, I was hoping to get Ben Troupe tonight, but apparently he's tied up. Give me your honest objection. You texted me. I'm a Billy Napier fan. Okay. There's some people making wisecracks about how dull Billy was. And let's face it, he wasn't exactly any young one up there. We know that. Give me your honest assessment of how Billy did. And when he took the podium, we know it's all hype. That's what it is, what he said. And did anything stick with you that Billy Napier said?
Well, one of the things he talked about is I think he's a planner. He's really methodical, but he's not going to go up there and try to overpromise and then be accused of underdelivering. I think if you look at the way Florida's recruiting now, their message is getting out. And just the interactions that I had with Florida's players they had up there, they've got quality student athletes. I can tell you that. They've just got to get an offensive system, and they got to find a quarterback who's a game changer. And Florida will struggle like anybody else will too without a quarterback. But people are going to have to remember, Billy Napier did not become the new Florida coach because Dan Mullen left everything in great shape. And people have got to be realistic and say, okay, it's going to take a few years to reload. But I think he's the right guy for the job. And if I didn't think so, I would tell you I think I'm a truth broker. I will tell you what I think. But he's learned from two of the absolute best in college football. I would see what that turns out. I think it's going to turn Florida back into a really strong program. And just going to – people are going to – don't panic this year if they don't win 11 games.
Yeah, I've got on my screen. You can't see this. You're driving. This is Rob Browne, who did a great job for us from SEC Media Days. I'll turn your volume down just a minute because it's making noises here, but you can hear me. I'm reading this off, and I'll come back to you for a comment. This is what I guess got from the SEC office. This is the projection. Always they do the poll at the end of things to see where everybody's picked. I've voted this a number of years. I didn't this year because I wasn't there. But this is where they lined up how the SEC media guys, over 1,000 of them, made this projection of how they expected teams to finish. As you see obviously Georgia, Tennessee. They got Tennessee going 10-2. Here's a surprise: South Carolina is third. I don't quite get that. They got them 7-5, 5-3. Kentucky maybe 8-4. Put 4-4 in the conference, so they're fourth. Florida's fifth at 5-7, 3-5 in the conference. Then Missouri at 4-6, and Vanderbilt at 4-8. Okay, I guess you can say they're kind of bunched up there after Tennessee, South Carolina, Florida, Missouri, Vanderbilt, etc. We just still too early to make a projection yet. But Rob, your thoughts about that? Those rankings, aside from Georgia, who you got ranking? Did you vote in this, and who you got ranked second, third, and fourth in the East? The last East, by the way, will be gone.
Well, I'd say, Georgia number one. It isn't because of their quarterback; it's because of the overall talent. Number two, South Carolina, Spencer Rattler. He's a proven quarterback. That makes sense. But then Florida, you could put Florida at 3, Kentucky at 4. Devin O'Leary, transfer from NC State at Kentucky. They're banking on that working out. We don't know that. If Florida had a stronger quarterback room of guys that have done it as Gators, I think they could then make a case for third. Right now, they're fourth. It's hard to pick them any.
They're fifth in this poll. They got them in fifth. Yeah, they got them fifth. Fifth.
Yeah, fifth. Yeah.
And Missouri's sixth.
Florida.
Yeah.
I can't think Florida's going to have a losing record.
Okay, now I'm going to read to you. I'll turn this down. Obviously, the question is, says Alabama or LSU? Well, by the way, this poll is never right, just so you know. They got LSU going 12-0. That's pretty strong, 12-0. Alabama 10-2. I don't think LSU is going to go undefeated. They may lose the first game against FSU. You never know. But they're very good. They really are very good. Now, are they the best team? Could they beat Georgia? I don't know yet. Alabama is 10-2. Their quarterback situation is somewhat in flux at this point in time as well. Then after that is kind of a grab bag. Arkansas 8-4. Texas A&M 8-4. Got Arkansas up there with Texas A&M. I think I'd move Texas A&M up ahead of them. Then Mississippi State 7-5. Auburn, your Auburn Tigers 6-5. And how about this? Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss Rebs. They are resounding last in the West. Your thoughts?
Well, I think last year LSU was the weakest SEC West champion in a long time. And this year, they should be. They're a year older under the Brian Kelly system. Alabama, look, until Nick Saban until we're proven wrong, you got to pick Alabama number one in the West.
Number one. So you're picking them over LSU, huh? Okay.
Yeah, I do. I do pick them over LSU. And I know Jayden Daniels is a proven quarterback, but I say that because the overall talent, and also Alabama's going to be a better team. They're going to be like they were more back in 2015 and 16. That kind of team. They're going to be more physical. Defense is going to be better. I like them. Arkansas, it's all about KJ Jefferson not running so much and getting himself banged up. A&M, look, I mean, Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino, that's going to be a fun one to watch. They've got a ton of talent. But I'm not going to pick LSU to go 12-0. They got to go on the road and play Florida State in that first game. And then you look at Ole Miss. Mississippi State, they were 9-4 last year. They'll win 7 or 8 games, but Ole Miss, that's the mystery. Somebody put out on Twitter, Lane Kiffin, there was no conversation about his football team. All the questions were about
complained about NIL,
yeah, and the quarterback room, and that was it.
Yeah. Rob, you're breaking up, but you did a great job this week for us. We'll see you on the Sideline Show Saturday about 10 o'clock. You got your breaking up. Appreciate you and do all the work you did. Thank you very much. Sorry about the transmission, folks. Rob did a great job for us. Want to get him on. That Sideline Show is heard 6 days a week. You can check it out. Does a great job with him. A lot of our guys are on that show. All right, we're gonna. Looks like Ben Troupe is caught in traffic in Atlanta. We'll stand by for that. But I wanted to say a couple things here about the sport you love to hate. Shane Matthews and I love to talk about it. It's golf. At Royal Liverpool, the British Open today. Watch part of that. You get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and watch it if you want to. But after 156 golfers teed off, I have a 3-way tie at the top of the leaderboard with one of them is an amateur from Georgia Tech, a Georgia Tech player, Christo Lambrecht. And my guy, Tommy Fleetwood, who I picked on Shane's show, is tied also. Tommy Fleetwood needs to win a tournament. He's too good of a player not to. And then finally, Emiliano Grillo of Argentina. So that's what's happening. If you like golf, you got to tune it in and watch it. I want to say also I'm really happy that Justin Spieth, my late wife's favorite player, is in the hunt at -2, and I'll be pulling for him because I know Jody is. And Rory McIlroy, who won last week on a surprise, is back to even par. So he's in the hunt. It's going to be a fun weekend watching that for sure. And as we speak, my Tampa Bay Rays are battling to try to get back in first place against the Baltimore Orioles. That game is tied now at 3-3 in the 10th extra innings. So the Rays are it's Baltimore's the bat. So that's going on right now. All right, little news there. And see what else here now. I mentioned Lane Kiffin. When Franz gets on, we'll talk about this. He railed today against the legalized cheating, pay for play, he's the conscience now of the SEC. Complaining, it says that this name, image, and likeness rights have transformed college football into a disaster that we're in. Now, look, I know there's some problems, but Lane should know it's a disaster. He's had a few of them himself. So Kiffin been outspoken about this stuff, and he prefaced his remarks Thursday by saying he had no problem with the players being paid. The main source of his discontent was liability to transfer right away. He didn't like that. Now, this is a guy who's jumped all over the place. He said, I was just thinking about on the plane ride over here, what if you had this in other sports, he says. Tom Brady, A.J. Wilson, Lionel Messi, LeBron James, what if every year these guys opt for free agency twice a year? Yeah, well, it's a problem. By the way, Lane's making $7.35. He kind of leveraged that position to get that. It was all the time talking to Auburn. So clean up your own act first, Lane, and we'll talk about it later. All right, we'll tell you about this. I think Franz is here. Franz is under the weather. He made it. We're glad of that. I want to tell you about Titan MRI. Titan MRI is worth the short drive from Gainesville to Ocala, or reverse Ocala to Gainesville. No insurance, no problem. You can pay with cash or card. Same-day scheduling available. You start feeling better today. Titan MRI is North Central Florida's premier independent MRI facility. Come see why hundreds of patients are visiting our Gainesville location from Ocala, Marion County, and the villages. That's TitanMRI.com. I'm Buddy Martin, the program Orange Blue Blood Thursday. Ben Troupe calling traffic, and here's the man of the hour, your favorite, number one in the hearts of Gator fans, the Iron Duke himself, Franz Beard. What's up, Francis?
Another day in paradise, Bud Light.
How you feeling, brother?
I hope somebody got the license plate of the truck that ran me over.
Yeah, that's been through there several times the last couple of days. I heard you say you got hit, but pretty bad. I'm sorry you're feeling so bad, and hope you get better. And
it's just one of these things, some days you got it and some days you don't. And this time, like I said, I'm just not feeling well, but I'm all right. I'll be
Well,
okay.
I want to say I'm sorry you're sick, and I want to say you've been amazing how you churned out the copy. There's an old joke about a photographer. I'll put myself back on the screen here, who gets run over by a truck, and he's got a camera in his hand, and they run over to get him and see if he's okay, and he holds the camera up and says, opens up the camera and takes the film and says, "Be sure and develop this." It's what we stupid guys like us do when we just say.
Remember when we actually used to have photographers who had film in their cameras?
I know that is an oldie. Boy, did I date myself for what, huh?
Do you remember having to develop film? Oh gosh!
I learned how to do it in a darkroom when I was in college in Florida. I used to take darkroom back in those days. Yeah, people say darkroom. What is that? Well, guess what? It wasn't always digital, folks. So, so I want to say good evening to Dan Bond, and says bring on the Duke, and the Duke is on. Dave Aronoff, hey G&K, hello to Christopher Davis, Michael Burton. Let's see, David Baldoff, Dilly Dilly, our usual crew here tonight. Glad to have them aboard and grateful to have this G&K group. We found an old picture the other day of a card that was handwritten on an index card that was in the wash, and Brendan's mother took it out of his wash, and it said Dilly Dilly. It was the original Dilly Dilly we had on the show, because you were part of that, Franz. When we started it, I wanted to say to folks, I'm really excited about some new plans we're going to be doing, and we're starting we've already started it, but we're not completely there yet, our YouTube channel. And for those people who are not signed up, please go to YouTube, The Buddy Martin Show, and subscribe. It's free. If you don't like Facebook, this is where you can get us. And this is going to grow exponentially, because with Franz's good looks and mine, well, not mine, it's going to grow right away. We want to try to get to 5,000 to 1,000 subscribers right away. So we're getting there. So please tell your friends and neighbors, go to YouTube, The Buddy Martin Show, subscribe. All right. Francis, let me show you a picture. All right. The new number one.
Yeah, that's good. I think Princely's going to have a great year. He's the one guy that's out there that the rest of the media in the SEC seems to think is going to be worthy of either first or second team all SEC. And I do believe that there are going to be a lot of surprised people this year. I think Florida's better than what anybody suspects. I was listening on Sirius XM earlier today on with New Heisel, Chris Childers, and that bunch. Mm-hmm. And for example, they think Florida's offensive line is going to be one of the top 3 or 4 offensive lines in the entire SEC. And guess what? I believe that's going to be true too. By the way, speaking of the SEC, did you happen to catch Lane Kiffin today?
Yeah, I talked about it earlier. So we're going to save this for when Franz gets on. He had a few things to say, kind of a holier than thou approach for a guy who's bounced all over the league and benefited from all these other things. But he said he made his remarks regarding the NIL thing and why it's what he called legalized cheating, play for pay. He said, of course it is.
It is.
We know that. We need Lane to tell us that.
Well, the thing about it is there's still a lot of people out there that don't believe it, buddy. And Lane, Matt Hayes wrote about it today. Lane is the one thing that Lane is lacking is Spurrier's titles. Spurrier could say it, get away with it because he had the credentials to back it up. And Lane, Lane has been at places, let's face it, he won a national championship as the offensive coordinator at Alabama with Jake Coker as his quarterback. You got to be pretty good to do that. He's at a place at Ole Miss. He's won 18 ball games the last 2 years. I got to tell you what, that's hard to do at Ole Miss.
You know where he's picked this year? You know where he's picked this year by the group in SEC? Last in the West. Last.
Greg McElroy thinks that's going to Greg McElroy believes that's going to be not exactly so. Greg McElroy thinks they're going to be the surprise team in the league. I think they could be, but I know this, that you're never going to get the linemen at Ole Miss that you're going to get at Alabama and at Georgia and places like that. And quite frankly, that's everybody's got skill people in the SEC, and Lane is probably as good a person coach there is at using his skill people. But what he doesn't have is he doesn't have linemen on both sides of the ball. And until you get those linemen on both sides of the ball, you're never going to win at all. This is why I'm so impressed with what Billy Napier's doing here at Florida. Look at how he is building in the trenches. That tells you how good Florida is going to be in the future.
Yeah. Dan Bond bringing us something here we talked about last night. We'll get to that in a second. Thanks to David Arnoff. Follow him, and we're going to build this up, this YouTube channel. He's gone over there to YouTube and signed to the Buddy Martin Show. Appreciate that a lot, and this is where we're going to be. For those of you who don't like Facebook, and some of you don't have to go on anymore. You can go right to YouTube and get the Buddy Martin Show every night live, and of course you get it afterwards if you want to tape it. A couple of quick comments. Dan Bond said, like you said, buddy, the first year of running clock will help Florida. I think it will, Franz, especially since this team was built to run.
Well, if they can move the football, it will help, and yet it won't, because the one thing about it is when you have that time after a first down, you can make your own adjustments there. I agree with it's one of these things that slices both ways, because the defense certainly can get people in there when the clock stops for that while they move the chains. But the other thing that happens is the offense can adjust too. I personally don't want the game to be like the NFL. I like the college game. I like the way that the college game has been played for years, and I like the differences between the college game and the pro game. And it's like this thing with the NIL and the transfer portal, and I agree. I heard Rick Neuheisel talking about that this week, and he said we're heading toward being the NFL, the way that everything is changing, and I agree with that. It is, and I'm not happy with all the changes. I love the game, but somebody else mentioned this week, buddy, that they liked it when the game was more regionalized, when you had 10, 12 team conferences, 10 and 12 team conferences, things like that. I liked it when we had the Big East, for example. I liked quite frankly, I liked the 10-team SEC. I don't know if you did or not.
No, I did. I mentioned this the other night, and there's some of the things you're saying I'm with you on, because someone mentioned the other day, but not to interrupt you, but said, you know what, say goodbye to the divisions. And I thought, wow, I forgot about that. We won't have them after this year. And then they start talking about the changes. Well, they're going to bring now. You're going to hear Texas and Oklahoma yapping away about all the things. The next year's SEC media days is in Dallas. It's a whole different era, and I'm not so sure I'm ready for that, Franz. I'm not sure I want all that change at once.
Well, somebody says that's the price of progress, and sometimes progress is not a great thing. I remember when Steve Spurrier used the pulpit over on SEC Media Days to go after Roy Kramer about why we don't have a playoff. Well, guess what? We've got one now. And Steve Spurrier has a lot to do with that. We have what the BCS became we got that because of Spurrier. We wound up with a 14 playoff, I think, because Spurrier set the impetus for it. Not all change is good. Some of it is, some of it isn't. But I liked it better when we had smaller conferences. That it bothers me that there's not going to be a Pac-12, and believe me, there is not going to be a Pac-12 and maybe not by the end of this year. The Pac-12 is, talk about on life support. They're on life support. They don't have a media deal. They just said, well, we aren't going to have it now, but we're going to have one. I mean, I've heard this for 2 years. It's imminent. The only thing I know that's imminent right now is that I'm going to take another breath in another second. There we go. I did it.
And there's the guy laying on him right there, Loren Meadows. He changed. He brought us all down from Dayton. He changed everything. What's up, Coach? How you doing? Been a while, man. Good to see you again.
Man, yeah. Been on the move a little bit, doing a little traveling, but back in the saddle. Was up in the great north for a little bit, where they play football on that oblong field and all that moving around before the snap and all that foolishness. But we back, So
good to have you. What do you think about all you've been hearing? You haven't heard everything that went on during the SEC media days, I'm sure. What's all your feeling? What's your gut telling you? What you heard? And I know you heard. We're going to talk about this whole thing with Spurrier allegedly had to have said this, which he didn't really say. But boy, it was sure nice to hear it. I was hoping it would have been true. What's your take on it? And I'll get Francis on what you heard out of Nashville.
I mean, it's media days, and it, a lot of times it's extremely positive. If you look at just from the standpoint of the Florida Gators, I thought Billy Napier seemed a lot more confident in his football team, and as he likes to call it, further along in their process and things like that. And I mean, it's interesting that I guess it's hard to kind of pin down that a lot of people just aren't bullish on the Gators, and I kind of like to think about kind of what Jason Marshall said with the fact that they're going to shock the world, because I think there are some pieces there, and if shocking the world is 7 to 8 wins, then I like that, and maybe an occasional upset, maybe even the first game of Utah when they go out there, or maybe on the back end against Florida State. But I do like, when you have, pieces like, Kingsley and Jason Marshall and Ricky Pearsall, who seem to all have an air of, confidence about them that I think can resonate through the guys that, head to media days, or some of the team leaders and things like that. And I think that, if those three gentlemen can have a good year, I think I think that they're in for it. Yeah, there he goes with the in for a good
right
year.
Here. Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, I actually
John Wick.
I got a pair of those shoes as well. Actually, I have 2 pairs. So
of course you would. You got about 500 pairs of shoes. Why wouldn't you have those?
Yeah, but no, and I will say this. I was listening. It didn't necessarily come out of it, but in France, I think has echoed this as well. The one thing I did come out, I can't remember who said it though, but when they were actually running down the offensive line and they went through the number of starts, you have Masuka, who started 10 games at Baylor. You have, I think it's Godwin that's played from Kentucky that's, played in every game. And the young man from Alabama, his name escapes me right now, that has started some games. George, yeah. And I mean, you throw in the Austin Barbers and, like you said, Kingsley returning, that the offensive line could actually be better than it was last year from top to bottom.
I think the numbers you're talking about, I'm sorry to interrupt you, the numbers you might have been talking about, and I double-checked this in my column today, is that through the transfer portal, Billy says he's picked up 10,000 more snaps and 123 starts. Now, I'm not a numbers analytical guy, Franz. You're better than I am on this, but that's a pretty impressive number, isn't it?
It's a very impressive number, because the one thing, if you're going into the portal, you better come back with experience. And because if you don't come back with experience, then you're spinning your tires. You really are. You're making up for your inadequacies in recruiting. what you're doing when you bring back experience is you're making up for the inadequacies of the previous guy. And he's been able to do that now. I look at it like this. They've got 17 guys since he's been here who started their careers someplace else. And of those 17 guys, 11 or 12 of them will be starting this year. So what does that say about the previous coach? Dan Mullen is a great play caller. I think if you try to talk about being able to call a ball game, Dan Mullen, Lane Kiffin, probably Kendall Briles might be the three best out there, period. I mean, there may not be anybody
no Bobby Petrino?
I don't.
No, I would say Petrino. Yeah,
he's
pretty
good. He's good, but let's see how good he is this year at Texas A&M. It's one thing to call your own game when you're the head coach. It's another thing to be working for somebody, and it's been 20 years since he worked for somebody.
Well, how long is the over-under? How many games would be before there will be a feud between the two of those guys?
A divorce, probably 2 games. 2 games before they file for a legal separation, and probably 6 before the first divorce papers are filed.
Yeah.
But, you look at this, and you look at the guys who are really, really great play callers out there. There's not that many of them that are great play callers.
Yeah.
It's for a long time, buddy, as you know, everybody wanted to emulate Bill Walsh. And there was a point in time in the NFL, I think, out of 30 teams in the NFL, I think something like 23 of them were running the West Coast offense. I mean, it was, basically it was the same old, same old. And that's another thing that I've always loved about college football is because, 1 week you're playing Georgia Southern and that funky offense they used to run. And the next week, all of a sudden you're playing a spread team.
How Mummy's throwing it 60 times.
Yeah, exactly. And these are all good things that make the game different and better.
I agree.
This is one of the things I like about what Billy is doing here. Because while everybody else is going spread and going chunk it all over the place and whatever like that, he's going back to saying, I'm going to knock your butt off the football. I'm going to run it. I'm going to play defense with my offense because we're going to take time off the clock. And we're going to put you in position that you got to start deviating from your game plan because you can't get the football back from us. So you feel like you got to get it all back at once. It's going to work. I believe it's going to work. And he's got the people to make it work.
I've said this a couple of times. It doesn't make me a wizard. That's pretty obvious. And I was told by Moulton on Wednesday night that was going to happen anyway. It just so happens, what is Florida's strength? Going to be offensively. They're going to run the football. No secret there. They got 2 terrific running backs and maybe a third. They got an offensive line. They don't get injuries. We're going to be able to move the football. They got enough experience with Pearsall and the wide receiver position and the kids coming in. And they are going to keep the ball. And here's the thing. Let's not forget, it's a running clock this year, guys. If you can hold the football and run the football, Loren, you can control the game.
Yeah, I think, I think Billy Napier, one thing that I agree with him on is he constantly preaches complimentary football. And, that means that the offense.
You don't mean complimentary like COMPLI, you mean E, like compliment each other, right? It's a different word.
Yes. And making sure that that the offense does not put the defense in a bad position, that during the week that the defensive staff and the offensive staff are in communication about what they think they can do, what they think they can stop. And as I'm calling plays and going through my game plan and looking at the game, I then say, okay, I don't want to put my defense in a bad position here, so I'm going to do this. Or, defensively, they don't necessarily sell out all the time if the offense is struggling to score points, they change their identity a little bit to make sure that everybody's in tow. And I think that that's one of the things that with the running clock and the ability to run the football, that will even be more complimentary for the defense as they find their footing and things like that. And I do think the defense will be better. Is that running clock will allow Coach Napier and his offensive staff to basically call plays and really manage the clock and things like that. I think he had a
keep
quote,
the defense off the field. That's
right.
the thing.
Well, I think he had a great quote when he, at Louisiana, I think he said, and I don't know if I'm quoting this directly, Franz, but he basically said, they said, what do you think, Coach? And he said, I think we're going to, run the football, play good defense, and go home. And I think ultimately that's what he wants the identity of his team to be. And like I said, with that clock and things like that, obviously it'll take some getting used to with everybody. Yeah. But I think ultimately his blueprint, if executed well, can really bode well for his football team.
And Franz, that goes back to Graham Mertz. Yeah, Franz. Yeah, you're right.
Well, buddy, you remember this as well as I do, buddy.
Yeah.
1984. Florida lined up
Great
with the Great Wall, and they said, "We are coming at you."
Couple of pretty good tailbacks then too, right?
Three great running backs. My gosh, 3 number 1 draft picks, and they have a redshirt freshman quarterback from Mayo, Florida.
Gee, what was his name? I'll never guess.
Kerwin Bell, the throw-in Mayo. And what did they do? They
won the New York Times National. They won the New York Times National Championship, by the way, just for the record. Okay.
They were the best team in the country. Period. And what they do? They lined you up. They said, "We're going to knock you off the ball, and when you try to play us 8 in the box, we're throwing it over the top to Ricky Nattiel." Worked pretty daggum well, if you ask me.
Unfortunately, the business department didn't work so well. Hey, by the way, I'll put this up here right now because some of the guys like our friend Jerry Vitaliano, they don't tune in at the beginning of the show. They don't know we put this up once already, and they missed it. And Jerry wants to know why nobody will answer his question. Here is the SEC projection on how these teams will finish. The last time we'll have our divisions, and since he missed it, we might as well go over it. No surprise in Georgia. Tennessee, maybe a little high. I'm surprised South Carolina and Kentucky are that high. And over Florida, I would say that's a pretty even match there. I think Missouri and Vanderbilt about where they deserve. LSU, I don't get this, 12-0. They're good, but I don't see them going 12-0. I'm sorry. No. Alabama 10-2, maybe better. The quarterback situation. Arkansas and at Texas A&M, the same record, 8-4. Mississippi State 7-5. Auburn 6-6, and Lane Kiffin 6-6. So just for Vitaliano, who missed that, there you go. All right, guys, I'm going to put this up. I want you to comment on it. We're talking about now, if I can find it, the rankings of all quarterbacks, say top 50, whatever it may be, okay? I saw a list today, and I had it on my screen. I had to remove it. They ranked, well, here it is. Hold on. If you can see this, let's see if we can see it. If you started going through all the quarterbacks and ranked them, come on, here it is. Well, it's not going to let me put it up, but I can read it. If you started ranking the quarterbacks, where would you put them? And they've got a list of 50, starting with, I'll give you Drake May, pretty good choice. Caleb Williams, I put Caleb Williams ahead of him. Quinn Ewers from Texas. Joe Milton, who seems a little high, although I'm a big fan of his. Spencer Rattler, who I think might be underrated there. Bo Nix, you forgot he was playing, didn't you? I did. Austin Reed, down to Michael Penix, Leary from Kentucky. And then,
where's Sam Hartman?
Well, Hartman's on down a ways. I'll get it. It's a very small type. It's hard to see. But I was going to get. What do you think? What do you think Graham Mertz is?
49.
He's 40. Now, if that's not bulletin board material, friends, I don't know what is.
Well, That's ridiculous. But, again, so is Sam Hartman. Sam Hartman, I mean, what's the guy done? He's thrown 110 touchdown passes.
He's 17th. He's 17th, by the way.
There are not 16 quarterbacks better than Sam Hartman. 12,967 yards, 110 touchdown passes at Wake Forest Gump. I mean, Lord have mercy. The guys averaged 8.1 yards. Where do they have Will Rogers on that list?
I'll have to look it up, but let's see. He should be up the top 10. He's not. Sam Hartman, Spencer Sanders, Will Howard, Sanders from Colorado, McCarthy, Bradley, Tagovailoa, Leonard, Sims, Davis, McKinney, Mordecai, Armstrong, Bryant. I don't see his name anywhere up here.
They got Tanner Mordecai ahead of a guy that's thrown. Yeah, oh my gosh.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, my thing is, what I mean, so you said Shadur Sanders is ahead of Sam Hartman?
Yeah, I think that's what they got. It's hard to see this. It's very small.
So you telling me? I mean, no. I mean, my parents are HBCU grads, but I ain't no way, man. I mean, Shadur Sanders. I mean, he probably played 2 or 3 quality defenses in the SWAC at best. And I mean, even North Carolina Central made him look rather pedestrian in that heritage. I mean, there's no I mean, that's all hype, man. That list.
Anybody can make a list. We can make our own list. Let's make a list of best looking sports writers. Franz, I'll be 1, you be 2. There you go. We got our list right there.
Nobody can touch Loren, and all you got to do is look at his wife. He's obviously got it going. He's got Dave his wife. He wins the best looking award.
No doubt about
it. Some of these people, I look at some of these lists, buddy, and some of these people, my gosh. I was looking the other day, and some of these people. Caleb Williams is a good quarterback.
Very good quarterback. He might win the Heisman. He may win the Heisman. Probably will.
Well, he won it last year.
Yeah, probably will.
He won it last year.
But
he's eligible to win it again. Just because
he is, and he's really, really good. Is he the best quarterback in the country?
Well, it depends.
I don't know
what team he's playing with against whom, and what. So much it has to do with how well the team plays too.
Not only that, it depends on, are you playing in a system that is conducive to putting up the big numbers? Look at
where do they have? Go ahead, France. I'm sorry.
Look at the guys that have played for Lincoln Riley. I mean, everybody who's the quarterback in that system puts up the big numbers. People used to say the same thing about whoever was the quarterback for Steve Spurrier. Well, he's just a product of the system. Goodness.
All right, you guys want to see this? There it is. If I can put it up, I'll do my best.
There we are.
Probably can't read it, but there it is.
I'm
okay. Where?
You'll have to read it.
Where's Cam Rising? Where's Cam Rising?
I don't know. I didn't look it all up. There they are right there. You can read it as we roll up. There it is right there.
So Cam Rising is not in the top 25?
Well, he's hurt, for one thing. So we don't know if he's going to get on the field.
Okay.
So, McCall, Bradley, Slovis, Tagovailoa, Leonard.
So whoever made this list got dropped on his head too many times when he was an NFL.
Yeah.
I think he was an FSU grad, I believe. But anyway, so.
Well, speaking of FSU grads, look how low they've got Jordan Travis.
I know, he's a top 10.
Jordan Travis is a tremendous talent, playing for a coach that knows how to use him, and it's like we go back to where we're talking about Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley recruits kids who can play to his system. A lot of it's the system and stuff like this. The great equalizer is what happens when they get to the National Football League. That's the great equalizer. How many of these guys who win Heisman trophies, etc., like that, go on to have great professional careers?
Yeah, okay, so we're down now to the final draw with Graham Mertz. And we're going to say a word about him tonight. And I'm going to go first. And then everybody's going to have a minute and a half to finish up. Here's my thoughts about Graham Mertz. I've come around on him a little bit, not based on what I saw, because I haven't seen anything except what he did at Wisconsin. I saw some numbers. I heard Paul Chris say some things about the fact that his surrounding cast wasn't that good. And by the way, Billy Napier repeated that at media days. I know he spent some time in Tuscaloosa with Nick Saban, and Saban wanted him to be the quarterback. He went to a Big Ten, started 32 games. Let's get that in there. And they say he's really a lot better throwing out of the shotgun than he is running, than he is behind the center. So Shane Matthews, the guy I consider my expert on quarterbacks, says he's going to be just fine. He expects him to play well. He thinks he'll play well enough to win 8 games. And so he thinks Graham Mertz is the guy. Add in that, if you got that offense, that offensive line who can help control that running game with those 2 running backs, or 3 running backs, and then Ricky Pearsall do his thing, and then you get Aiden Mizell and those other young speedsters, this team could, as Greg McElroy said today at the end of the show, how about a team like Florida? What if they jump in there and win 8 or 9 games all of a sudden? They could go 3-9 or 9-3 because it's a wide open field. And adding that, friends, going under the radar. This is where Billy was in SEC media days. A lot of people thought, well, he hadn't got much to say, and he was dull and all that sort of stuff. I think it's all planned. I think it's what he wants. He say as little as you possibly can, like old coaches say, Loren.
Yeah, I mean, you know that sometimes that tends to frustrate me a little bit, and you know that I've made that clear. But I will say, you know, if we're sticking with Graham Mertz, I will agree with my friend Shane Matthews that, you know, I agree. I think there's a lot of things, a lot of variables that go into some of the issues that Graham Mertz had at Wisconsin. One is the last about 5 games, it's about 10 degrees and the wind is whipping about 50 miles an hour trying to throw the football in Camp Randall Stadium, number one. But number two, I know for a fact that he and Ricky Pearsall seem to have a really good relationship. They hang out. There's a symbiotic relationship there that I think could bode well in the passing game. And the other thing is that Graham Mertz, in his starts, being a 3-year starter at Wisconsin, has seen every defense he's going to see, which means that, you know, when it comes time to check into the right running play or maybe get out of a run play and things like that, that really go into playing the quarterback position, it's not just dropping back, throwing the ball and running around. You got to get in the right play at the right time, understand the situation, and I think he'll excel at that. And, you know, I wrote in my article, you know, and that's why I kind of made him my number 3 reason is I think that if you look at the stats at just the grassroots and what they present, if you look at Anthony Richardson and Graham Mertz, very similar. The only difference is Graham Mertz will be in college another year and have the opportunity to improve, which I think Richardson would have done had he stayed in school. So, you know, I'm kind of I'm you know, as skeptical as I am sometime on Billy Napier for a lot of different reasons. I'm very confident in what Graham Mertz.
You sound kind of bullish on Mertz to me right there, you know. So good comment.
Yeah, I am.
Let me just mention a couple things before I give it to Franz to wrap it up. I want to make sure people know that we are now on YouTube. We're just morphing into that now. You can see this show there regularly. You'll see we're going to grow exponentially at YouTube. You'll be able to see it any time of day or night, which you can now. You don't have to belong to Facebook anymore if you don't have to. This show will continue on for a while, parallel. But YouTube is the place to go. We already had a couple of people sign up tonight. Loren, tell your friends and neighbors. Franz, tell your friends and neighbors. You tell your friends and neighbors. Go to YouTube. Be sure and do this week. It's important. And go to Buddy Martin Show and subscribe. It's free. It's free. And then you can get the show there on YouTube, and you can get it anytime you want to. So please do that. We really need you to do it. And I want to also say Loren made a reference to his article he wrote. I am so deadgum proud of the people we got working at Gator Bait. I mean, we got some really fine, the people, like, of course, Franz is our back mule. He carries us. But, I mean, you got guys like Loren and Dan Bond and our 2 youngsters. I'm really proud of Kyle Curtis, and I'm really proud of Matt Quadraro, the work they have done. So thank you for that. We're trying to keep it between the white lines, and we're going to do some new things in the near future. Hope you'll do that. Subscribe to Gator Bait and go now and be sure and sign up while I tell you about Renstar Medical Research, and Fran takes us out. Our folks at Renstar have been supporting us for a long time. We're so grateful to them, and also grateful for what they do in our community. They've got a high-quality, patient-centered clinical research facility right in downtown Ocala. Cutting-edge clinical research trials in areas like Alzheimer's, dementia, psoriasis, osteoarthritis, migraine, fibromyalgia, along with many other conditions that affect us in our communities. Since their inception in 1998, Renstar has participated in more than 700 clinical trials, 700. Continue to partner with prominent pharmaceutical and biomedical companies throughout the medical industry. You can be a part of these if you qualify. Go to renstar.net and see. If you do, in some cases, time and travel will get compensation. Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Franz, take us home.
Well, let's go back to Graham Mertz here. Here's why Graham Mertz is going to be successful in this offense. He's going to be asked to throw that 14 to 17-yard dart. And that was the staple of the Spurrier offense. If you go back to that, look at the 2 best quarterbacks Steve ever had. One of them was Shane Matthews, and the other one was Danny Werfel. Now, these are guys that didn't throw bombs. They didn't throw the ball 50 yards down the field. Most of their long touchdown passes were balls when the receiver was so open that he hit him with a 14 to 17-yard dart right in a seam, and the guy just outran everybody. Most of his touchdown passes were of that variety, which goes back to the Sid Gilman offense. You know, Sid Gilman, 4 vertical seams, 2 crossing seams. And Billy, I think, runs this very similar thing. And this is why Graham Mertz is going to be successful. He's not going to be called to throw 50-yard bombs. He's not going to be called to throw these dissecting throws. He's going to be called to make throws when people load up the box. He's got one-on-one coverage. You can run things like a crossing route or a seam route or whatever like that, and you can find somebody open with a 14 to 17-yard dart that's going to go for a lot of yards afterward. And that's what's going to be the staple of this offense. Graham Mertz can do that. He's not going to have to win ball games. He's going to have to manage them by making good, smart throws, accurate for what he's called on to do. Florida's going to win ball games this year. They're not going to be a 5-7 team this year. 7-5, 8-4. That's what they're going to be. And as I wrote today, could they win 9 games? Well, Jack Briscoe beat Harley Race for the NWA World Championship in Houston, Texas in 1973. And nobody gave Jack Briscoe a chance.
Were they quarterbacks? I don't remember them.
Against the great Harley Race. So
NWA wrestling, yeah.
The fact that Jack Briscoe could do it tells you that anything is possible, anytime, anywhere. You know.
Good Lord, Franz Beard, a wrestling reference. There you go. You can't beat that. Hey guys, got a treat for you. We're gonna go out with this. This is a terrific comment by Algonquin to Rob Browne yesterday. We played last night. The response we got, we're going to go out, listen carefully to what Rob's question is and how he handles it. You'll be proud.
A lot of fans out there, college football fans, are saying the game is ruined with NIL and all. And I mean, everybody wants to make money and all, but how many of your teammates, and you mentioned that about Rashada and all, would be there with or without it and all, and think about, you work your ass off, graduate, you come back, the connections, the relationships, what are those worth? But, you got to love the game of football more than anything.
Yeah, so that actually kind of played a part in me not going anywhere, even though that thought never really crossed my mind to leave UF.
Yeah.
But if I left for X amount of money more or less, however it may have gone, what is that really doing for me? Like, I've already put in this work for 4 years at the University of Florida. Now if I leave, how am I'm leaving off on that note. Like, but I think that's another thing I have a problem with, like, every day kind of seeing is, like, I kind of question some of the guys, not necessarily the guys on my team, but I just question, like, are you really a Gator? Like, are you really here because you want to be a Gator? Or are you here because they gave you this much money? And like me, I committed here, and NIL wasn't even a thing. The transfer portal wasn't even a thing when I got to college. So, you know, I think NIL definitely, there's obviously some guys across the country who might be going to schools because of the amount of money they can get. But, I mean, it's kind of hard to say. I personally don't think that's the right reason to go to a school, especially when everybody's paying NIL. Like, it's a common thing across all schools. So I think guys committing to schools because of money is kind of ridiculous, in my opinion. But